Okay, here we are live today on Occupy Radio, and we have Lena Melindez, activist, uh, candidate for City Council. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good, thank you. How are you?
Good, good. I'm breathing, so I'm fine.
Yeah, that's true words have not been spoken during the coronavirus era.
Yeah, this is creating a bit of a mess across the country, but particularly in New York. And you're in the midst of organizing rent strikes, is that right?
Yes, I've been on calls for weeks now, organizing my buildings on my block, and doing podcasts of how to organize buildings. Um, you know, going on interviews on the local TV network, New York One, and just getting the word out that may for people are not alone when they find themselves not being able to pay their rent in May.
It's a combination of things that people can't afford to pay rent. They don't have the money.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also have people that are in support.
Right.
How is that working out? Are you getting a lot of support?
Yes. I think that there are people that are willing to join the rent strike because there are so many grievances against landlords that this is an opportunity for people to get legal representation and make demands and get them met.
Mm-hmm. And how many buildings do you have right now that are involved?
Well, on my block, at least 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other buildings in the area that Riverside Edgecombe Neighborhood Association has been working with. They've got 10. There's in total 972 buildings that are on rent strike. Buildings, not
is
like
tenants. Is that just in New York?
That's in New York City.
Oh my God. Wow, that's great.
Yeah. And there are, with the banners and people looking and saying, well, maybe I'll hold back on my rent to see if they do cancel. Mm-hmm. But, listen, people have other things to pay besides their rent as well. Like and these landlords think they're with $1,200 that we are going to be able to pay our rents. Yeah. In New York City, where a studio goes for like no less than $1,600, mm-hmm. they're out of their gourd.
Yeah, I have no idea what it takes to live in New York City, and government is really doing nothing.
The people in government, I think, are out of touch with the working class. They just have, if they've ever, I don't think that they really understand what it is to be food insecure, to pay more than 30% of your income to rent. I don't think that they have that experience ever in their lifetime, because
sounds like you don't have $12 pints of ice cream.
I'm sorry?
It sounds like you don't have $12 pints of ice cream in your freezer.
No, I don't.
Well, our speaker does, and she likes to flaunt it. But meanwhile, they expect people to live on $1,200 over, what's this, 8 weeks now?
Yes.
Yeah, that's incredible. Apparently, the city council has a proposal to pass a law to basically, I think, suspend rents. But the sheriff
suspension of rents is not the same as cancellation.
I'll get into that in a second, but the sheriff came out yesterday and said that he couldn't enforce it. So that would require the governor getting involved. And why
Hmm.
not already acted?
But why would the governor want to get involved?
Exactly, because of who he is. Yeah.
I mean, he's been on the side of criminal enterprises like
Mhm.
these corporations that have stolen money from workers uh, to the tune of millions of dollars. Like, if they're looking to get monies, then maybe they should seek to that source of revenue. Um, he let the sweat bill die on the vine, even though it passed the Senate and the Assembly up in Albany.
Yeah.
He has not been on the side of workers or tenants. He basically we had to threaten our way into getting new rent laws.
Yeah. So you started, I interrupted you. You started to explain the differences between canceling and suspending. Would you help sort that out for people?
Sure, I'd be happy to. The rent freeze has to do with the RGB, the Rent Guidelines Board, that meets every week. Not every week. I'm sorry, every year on and decide and vote on the percentage of increase that rent regulated apartments, rent control and rent stabilized, rent regulated apartments will see it, and in what kind of increase they'll see with 1 and 2 year lease renewals. However, the rent suspension and the rent freeze does not, your rent is still due, by the way. Even if we get a rent freeze, we were fighting for a rent freeze before the pandemic. So getting a rent freeze at this point is woefully pitiful, because we were already in a crisis, with rent insecurity. Now we're in a pandemic. Millions of people have lost their jobs, and they're talking about a rent freeze. It's not even a drop in the bucket.
Right.
So rent suspension. Rent suspension is your rent will still be due. Like, we're sort of in a rent suspension now with the eviction moratorium. So you're sitting at home, you can't pay your rent. Your rent right now is suspended until the eviction moratorium is lifted. And then here we go. The housing courts are going to be flooded with eviction proceedings. So it doesn't help people if they can't pay their rent now. If they couldn't pay their rent in April, and they're not going to be able to pay their rent in May, they don't have a job. The economy is still basically on pause in New York. And we're not going to be able to pay rents in June either. Only difference is now we're going to have 3 months owed. Rent cancellation or rent forgiveness is, hopefully we can come to some kind of an agreement, a negotiation with landlords where they can they can forgive the rent so that you don't owe now and you don't owe later. That way, there is a span of time where you didn't have to pay, and so you almost like start fresh when the economy opens up again, when there's a viable economy. Like right now, people have lost their jobs, and those people that are waiting for their jobs to reopen may not be earning the same amount of money.
They may not even have jobs. When you consider, I think it was a small business association came out and
Right.
said that they're concerned that only 25% of businesses will open after this pandemic.
Right. Yeah.
So, and then the other thing to consider is that we know capitalist corporations are going to, at least by the end of the year, begin to cut employees. so that they can increase their profits. Um, it's not a pretty picture. All three levels of government will cut programs. They've already begun doing that now.
Like, it's almost genocidal.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, you're in a pickle now. Let's see how we can make it worse.
Right. Right.
And people at this point cannot be shy and go along to get along. Now is the time, if there was ever a time, to dissent and to rise up and to make those phone calls to the governors, to the governor, to the mayor, to their elected officials, their assembly person, their senator, and pressure them and ask them, what are you doing for us? What are you doing?
Yeah. And then we have our political leaders that we follow that talk about $2,000 UBIs, and I don't see anything happening on those proposals. And the other thing is that Congress isn't planning on coming back yet. You know, don't you think that they should be in session right now, working through
Even if
the
it's
bill?
virtually, even if it's virtually,
Yes.
I can understand the fear of contracting the virus. I can understand that. But to just drop the ball at this point,
Mhm.
it's negligent and irresponsible.
Right. Yeah. They totally abdicate their responsibilities constantly. Yeah. The first thing that you would have thought, at least from the Democrats, that they would want to push healthcare, but that's not happening. Um,
It's business as usual, and let's see if we can dig a little deeper into the cookie jar and get more.
yeah,
It's
Americans are strong.
disgusting
They'll
what's
deal with it.
happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's disgusting what's happening. It's like an opportunity for the rich to get even richer,
Yeah.
and the poor to be just squeezed even more. This is a matter of life and death. People are dying.
All
There are so many people that have died right now. It surpasses the amount of people that died in Vietnam. It just it's this is a time when the government should act boldly and decisively to relieve its citizens, the majority of its citizens, and not just continue on with their, profiteering agenda of
Mhm.
hedge funds, bankers, um, corporations, and what have you. Like, this is not a time to continue to enrich people that don't need it.
Yeah. FDR started doing the deal because he was fearful of a civil war or a revolution. These people have no concept or even think about the possibility of revolt by the people.
Right.
So, but anyway, how is your campaign going along? Have you had time to work
Well,
on it?
my campaign is sort of on pause a bit. I was in campaign funding, mode before the pandemic started, and I had just started the the raising funds when this hit. So now that people are in dire economic straits, it's going to be a bit difficult. It's been a bit difficult, and I've been pouring my energies into the rent strike, into helping those people that need to get connected with resources, people that do not, they're not expecting a stimulus check or an unemployment check or any other kind of check. And they're like going from food pantry to food pantry trying to feed their kids.
Right.
This is, this is unprecedented. This whole situation is so bleak for some and not for others. It's just this pandemic has really peeled back the thin veneer of denial that people had, that they couldn't, that they were, you know, thinking that they were middle class when they were really poor.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you don't have $400 for an emergency, hello. If you're not part of the millionaire class, hello.
Mm-hmm.
People want to aspire to be those things, but there are real impediments to, getting there. The American dream has really, I think, died.
Yeah. I knew someone several years ago that came here from India, and he had plans of, getting the gold from the street. The roads are filled with gold, and he had a business in Egypt. I'm sorry, he was Egyptian, not Indian.
Okay.
And he had 15 employees working for him in Egypt. He came here. He was stacking shelves in Walmart, and he eventually went home because
It
he
just
couldn't do
doesn't
it.
add up. It
Yeah.
just doesn't add up. Mm-mm.
Yeah. So, is there anything special at any event on May Day that you're planning?
Well, May Day, for those people that can't pay rent, they've already started their rent strike by default,
Right.
and some of us have joined them in that rent strike in solidarity. But May 1st, those people that did pay their rent in April will join us. More people will join in on the rent strike. And in June, even more people will join in on the rent strike, because this is not over. This is not going to be over by the swish of a wand.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, the president is not going to magically wave his hand and it'll all be over. It's not going to happen that way. This is going to be a long road to recovery. Things are not going to go to being back to normal. Normal wasn't great to begin with, and now it's even worse. So we have to really come together, and people have to be willing to do whatever it takes to pressure our politicians, because if there was ever a moment in time where we could affect change, it's now.
Yeah. Trump is living in a dream world. Yesterday, he had an order to force food plants to stay open. What happens if you don't have any employees left, that they're all sick? What do you do then?
What happens when they're infecting the food source?
Yeah, right. Exactly. We have to worry about our pets. Of course, we're going to have to worry about the food. When we have food delivered, I wash everything. I wash all of the products
It's a
and
new kind of
the vegetables and everything. Yeah.
right. It's new. Everything is different now. We have to don masks and gloves and hats and coverings. When we come back, we throw everything in a bag and then take a shower, wash our hands 50 times a day. Dip all of our vegetables and fruits in a solution of vinegar and water, or even whatever it is we're using to disinfect our fruits and veg. And it's like, it's very time consuming.
Yeah.
And I don't see how the economy is going to just come right back when we have to socially distance still. Like, restaurants going to open and you're going to have one table yes and one table no.
Well, that's if people even go to the restaurant. It took, during the Spanish flu in 1918, it took them 2 years to get back to normal. With the internet and with food being delivered, it may take longer, and it's not going to snap back overnight.
Yeah.
One of the things going on Friday was several caravans throughout the city demonstrating people can't be out there on foot, so they're driving through the city. Were you planning, or would you consider planning on joining them with your rent strike?
I didn't hear about the caravan.
Yeah, I'll send you information about it later.
I think I kind of read it, but I wasn't really sure what it was about.
Yeah, I had a video yesterday talking about it, and I'll send you the info on it.
Yeah, I read the highlights, the headlines.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and good luck with your organizing and your campaign. And
Thank you.
maybe we'll get together later on and talk about things.
Okay.
All right. Thanks a
Thanks.
lot.
All
Okay.
right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.